Okay, well, today I wanted to review the Buck 102 Woodsman. Um, I My previous video was on two case fixed blades that I was a little underwhelmed by. Uh, the one case knife was for my father, and the other one was for myself. Um, as a result, this Buck 102 is the answer to that uh, issue that I had with Case. Out of the Bucks that I own, this is the smallest fixed blade, and it is pretty wonderful, really. I like it so far. I have not used it, but as any of you know who are, really into knives like we are, once you use a lot of them and a lot of different styles of them in a lot of different applications, many times just by holding the knife and feeling behind the edge, things like that, you get a really, really good idea on how the knife's going to perform. Being Buck, I'm not really worried about the heat treat. I'm not. I mean, Buck has these things really, really squared away. These both of these 102s are the 420 HC steel. This one here being the Coca-Cola in brass, in this being the Coca-Cola in aluminum. Some other maybe type of alloy like that, maybe called something different. I don't know, but that's basically what it is. Both of these knives came with the black sheath. I've been wearing this knife, so the sheath is on my hip right now. But same sheath. I'm not sure if you know. I was under the impression that the Buck 102 Woodsman came with the burgundy colored sheath. But either way, I actually like the brown against this. It reminds me sort of my Mac V Sog Bowie, the black sheath with the brown handle and the brass. But a fan of this, and I have a 119 and a couple 120s. One of them is a vintage 120. The other is a 2016, I believe, maybe. And all of them have the Coca-Cola brass handles. So it's sporting about a 4-inch blade and slightly under an eighth of an inch. I think it's 0.12 inches thick. This is here. I find the handle to be big enough. In many instances, it sort of seems like how the handle is made is very, very important. When a handle is shorter, if it's not made correctly, it really, really stands out. Where this does not really feel that way. And even though it is a shorter handle, I mean, you can see here that, there we go. Now you can see just where the end is sticking out there. Okay, so my hand does overlap, and I'm, sort of over the guard there, really. But nice handle. Nice handle for what you're going to be using this knife for. Primarily, this is more of a bird trout, small game. This will work on whitetail all day long. In really, you probably wouldn't need or want maybe anything bigger than this for whitetail. Of course, the sky's the limit when it comes to something like this because, this is about the size of your Mora Classic, the smaller version, or, something like that, a small Mora knife, So, I mean, it's a small, type of knife. The application is not going to be, heavy-handed at all. So let's get this one out of the sheath here. And this is always nice too because the smell of the leather that comes with Buck is extraordinary. Get this here. There's a little mark on it there. There we go. And so there we have them. Same feel. Everything is really the same. Many times the handles can have some slight variations in them. I don't really see it in this here. So, some of the nice thing about this is, look at this nice clip point we have here. Nice and sharp and pointy. That's what I want, anything from panfish to steelhead to squirrel, any of that. I'll take this sharp point. I like that. I don't want to have an issue puncturing anything, and that could be holes in a belt or a strap to fit things tighter. Heck, it could be taking a splinter out. Very nice. Of course, Buck's edge is always super nice. Touch this up with a little bit of ceramic there. Very, very wonderful. Really, really enjoy the feel of this. So you can do a little size comparison, because I know sometimes it can be a little bit difficult sort of figuring out how big these things are. And when it comes to a smaller knife, it can be more nerve-wracking, because, you don't want the knife not to fit well in your hand, I don't know how popular this is, but it's sort of in the same, mentality. This is a Boker SAC pilot knife. The SAC is Strategic Air Command. It's got the stacked leather with the brass guard, aluminum pommel. But this is an SK5 blade. I think the blade is maybe closer to 4.5 inches. On that. Same nice style, though, Same nice thing we've got going on. Of course, the Buck being a little stouter. And that Buck is, quite a stout fixed blade, really. For its size. When I think of a Woodsman, I think of something that, is going to be very fitting for a Woodsman. When I think of a hunter, I think of something different in terms of a knife. Fisherman, a saltwater fisherman, big game hunter, all these things. A bushcrafter, I think of all these things different. They're all little, niche parts of, outdoors life. And being called a Woodsman, to me, I feel that this knife here should easily slice, vegetables, meat, game, fish, and cross over and do some utility work. You're a woodsman, so what are we doing there? We're cutting some cordage, shaping some tent pegs, even. As far as the batoning thing goes, I know everyone always wants to know. I will put my money on this over a Mora knife all day long. I know people get very, very scared when, for some reason, it's a full tang, but it's a hidden tang, and it's pinned down here. Usually you can faintly see maybe where that is. I don't know. Usually you can see there. Not seeing it right there yet, but could be but it's somewhere up here. I think right there it is. A little circle there. It's pinned. It's a big tang in there that's going through. It's not rat tail. It's just a hidden full tang. And this being stout like that, I would say you could baton maybe like little things for maybe like a quick little like camp stove or something that you got out in the woods, or maybe just something small for like hearthboard, something like that, like a crafting thing, maybe to make a wedge, something like that. I use an axe or a hatchet, so, I know it doesn't fall into the whole commando one-tool option type of thing, which is an interesting thought all in of itself, but it's more of Woodsman. I guess pun intended, because at the same time I have this knife here, I have this, And this really does my woodworking. Always has, even when I predominantly carried, a larger fixed blade even. Um, this predominantly does most of the work around camp. And food prep, it's definitely a breeze on. Problem being a jackknife like this gets hard to clean out too sometimes. It's just gets gunked up with things, and it's a dirty knife. I use it at work, cutting all sorts of things. It sees the dirt. It sees, lots of stuff. So this here to me is a very clean knife. The spines on these, they will throw somewhat of a spark with a ferrocerium rod. I know my Buck 119 and 120 do right out of the box, so to speak. I think you can better them a little bit if you did have a file or a sander or something like that. I think you could make them a little bit better. But as they are, it will work. Of course, 420 HC, all the survival primitive stuff of taking a piece of flint and smacking it off the spine is not going to work for a spark. But we're talking Woodsman, so if you go out in the woods and you're 3 tools deep, for your camping and all your stuff, you probably should be 3 or 4 methods deep for fire starting, like a lighter in your pocket, maybe even a ferrocerium rod in another pocket, and maybe a spare lighter and some cotton balls or some birch bark tinder or whatever it is in your pack. This knife, being the Woodsman, will handle, I believe, pretty much anything you could ask for a belt knife on a Woodsman. And we'll put the 119 in comparison here. I'm going to have to move these back. All right. There we go. It's about even, right? Not too bad. But we get the general idea, size-wise, what we're talking about here. And this 119 really has a lot of great uses. It is a wonderful camp knife. No problems with the 119 at all. But sometimes it does feel a little big. And, how much do you use your belt knife, right? That's the real question. How much do you use your belt knife? As I said, I mostly use a Case Stockman. So I don't really use a belt knife all that much, to be honest with you. A lot of the heavier work is easier done with a hatchet or a larger knife, something 9 inches or bigger, if you're talking staying with a knife or, machete type of thing. But in terms of a belt knife, it doesn't get used a whole lot. So, in a sense, why carry something this big when you're only going to use it 5% of the time? You can carry this, use this, right? You've got your tool set. You've got your other things that you need. Let's compare it here to a Condor Trivittata. This here is, I want to say maybe like a 3.5-inch blade. 1095. It's a Puko style blade. This thing is obviously pretty beefy. But we compare the spines, they're the same. So the Buck 102 is definitely a wonderfully designed blade. And as I stated, you're not going to go wrong with Buck when it comes to any of this stuff. Old school styling, but function. None of the things have changed that you're cutting out in the woods. Nothing's changed. The game is still the same game. The wood is still the same wood. The rivers are still all the same. Nothing's changed, and knives like this are they're timeless. They're very, very timeless. In a world where people are getting caught up with the latest designs and steels, and as someone like myself, and maybe more like you if you're into this video, you're probably a little bit more of a traditionalist. And I find that a lot more of these traditional knives, they cut better, and most of them feel better in hand. I do prefer, to be honest with you, the feel of a hidden full tang like this is. They are always more balanced feeling, at least to me. I shouldn't say always in blanket statement like that, but usually they feel better to me, and their balance is better. A lot seems to be better, but they're definitely a good quality knife. Never been disappointed in any buck knives that I have purchased, other than a 120 I purchased about 10 years ago, where the grinds were so bad. I just couldn't. I had to send it back, and it really, really put me off a little bit. But since then, I've gotten more buck knives and have been more than pleased with them. Well, sorry for my long-winded, video here and my rambling on of ideas and thoughts and opinions. I guess it could have been a 2-minute video, but I always have an excitement for knives, and I hope you do too. And thanks for watching. Take care.